a rare occasion that we basically get to start on time, so we thank you all for your promptness and for being here. Good evening, my name is Carol Barry Austin, and along with my co-chair, Erica Sue Willis, we welcome you all here this evening on behalf of the Community Coalition on Race. Before we introduce our moderator for the evening, we would like to take a few moments to speak about the coalition and more specifically the schools committee. Can you all hear me in the back? Yes. As many of you know, the schools committee has focused for 22 years on issues of integration and equity in our school district. Our goal this evening is to challenge the candidates to consider how school policy affects integration and equity in our schools and our classrooms. Candidates will be asked to respond to questions regarding segregated classrooms and schools, the recruiting and retention of a racially and culturally diverse staff, and addressing what many in the community believe to be low expectations for children of color among some of the teaching staff. As many of you already know, based on the Coalition's demographic report, our schools are becoming increasingly segregated. Though the Coalition has been on the forefront for many years working to eradicate many of the issues that were previously mentioned, our district continues to be plagued by disproportionate suspension numbers among our students of color compared to children not of color. And we continue to see a lack of opportunity for many of our students to move and be successful in higher levels. These are only a handful of topics that we believe need to be addressed to better understand the contributing factors to the minority achievement gap in our district. While tonight is an opportunity for candidates to state their positions on many of these issues, it is not enough. We must collectively fight for our students. The Coalition is an organization built on the grassroots efforts of volunteers who have led the fight for many years. We need not only your support, but your voices raised with ours to demand what is right and equitable for each student. Cast your vote on November 6th and continue to be vocal and challenge what has, to some extent, become the status quo in our district. We have the power collectively to create a better future for those that are currently left behind. My co-chair is now going to introduce our moderator for this evening.
Thank you, Carol, and I want to join my voice in thanking all of you for coming out this evening. And I also particularly want to thank members of the schools committee and trustees and staff of the coalition, and our chair, Robert Marchman, who's over there on the sidelines, is here also tonight. And I just wanted also to say that I am going to be the person who tells the speakers when they're down to 20 seconds and when they have to stop. So we try to keep for many years on the Board of Education, so she really knows firsthand the challenges facing our district and facing what it takes to be a Board of Ed member. While Abby approaches, we'd also like to thank every candidate for taking time to participate this evening in their commitment to bettering our district. And we want to say that recent events in our country prove to us once again that issues of equity and inclusiveness cannot be ignored. They're extremely important. By being here, you are each contributing to the change that starts in our community. So please welcome our moderator, Abby Kotler, and all of our speakers.
Thank you to the candidates and thanks to the audience. I'm going to get right to it because we have a lot to cover tonight and we want to stay on schedule. You have guidelines for the evening, and you also have the format right at your tables. We're not going to go over them. Please take a look yourselves. Also, later in the evening, we will have questions from the audience. You'll put them on index cards. All questions must have your name. We will be handing them to someone who will take them from you. They will come to me. I will call you by your name after they've been spoken. The question format is, well, first we're going to have opening statements for 1 minute from each candidate. So I will start with Candidate Cutter. And we'll just go this way so everyone gets.
So just to be clear, timekeeping is
Sure. Yeah, here.
So you get the mic.
1 minute.
No, just just to be clear, in timekeeping, is
Oh.
the sign is 20 seconds?
And she's right there.
Okay.
Sue, hold it so I can see it also, okay? The time.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank the Community Coalition on Race for holding this very important forum this evening. I'd like to thank my fellow candidates for joining me up here tonight. And I'd like to thank all of you for attending. It does truly take community involvement to make sure that our community and schools are successful. So I would start off by saying that my passion and drive for running this year for the school board comes from me being an educator for over 20 years. I have been in the classroom, I've been a school administrator, and I've also been a national policy expert in education, not just here in the state of New Jersey, but across the country. I've worked with school districts, school boards, government agencies, state agencies, and more recently on the federal level, working to make sure that we're bringing welcoming, affirming, inclusive schools for all students and families. And for me, what that means and what that sounds like is making sure we're putting students first. They're the most marginalized and underserved in our community, and that looks like Black and brown students, Asian students, LGBT students, undocumented students, students that have disabilities, and making sure that we're proving and making the groundwork and framework to making inclusive environments for all students to learn and thrive inside and outside the classroom. This is why I'm here tonight. This is why I'm running. This is why I feel so passionately about this topic.
Thank you to the Coalition for creating spaces for our community to civilly discuss the implications and ramifications of inequity. Our willingness to have these hard conversations is one of our community's essential values. We have not always been able to turn our values into actions or realities in our schools. This is the great work of education in our time, and it is the center of everything that I believe. The Access and Equity Policy made it possible for children to select any level of instruction without any barriers. This policy passed unanimously because it implied that certain students want the opportunity to learn and will seek it out, while other students do not want to or are not capable of learning. This us versus them dichotomy has absolutely no place in education and has kept us as a community from delivering for all children. The district work underway is delivering the power of the policy by ensuring our classroom environments support all children to achieve. We're in the midst of shepherding through an integration plan for our elementary schools. This is not just to see diversity in our classrooms, but to allow students and staff members to leverage the diversity of experiences. I look forward to more discussion.
State your names, please, as you go.
Michael Laskowski. Thank you for the Community on Coalition and Race for having this debate. This is actually the largest turnout we've had for any of the debates, so thank you for everyone who took the time to come. This is a very important topic. We have a lot of issues going on in the district, but one of the biggest issues is the fact that we have a segregation issue amongst the district that we have yet to address and fix those problems. Even though we talk about it, we haven't really fixed it. And we are fortunate enough to have a facilities plan that is going to help us from an enrollment standpoint capacity, but also the ability for us to move some students around the district, to give choice to families to integrate more into the schools. We also have to look at the curriculum that we're offering to students. We talk about providing this curriculum to students, but we also have to provide the professional development to the teachers. We want our students, but it's time. It's time for us to look at what we want to be, and let's stand up and let's make change for all students, not just one group, all students. That's what's important to us. That's why we're up here. That's why you're here tonight. That's why everyone's been involved in the campaigning. It's about the kids.
Hi. So having experienced personally culture of low expectation as a student when I was a kid, when I was going to elementary school, when I was going to high school, I've had teachers say to me, don't bother applying to college, you're just going to waste your money because you'll probably fail out anyway. I was lucky in that I had a support system in my family. My mom is a teacher. She's been a public school teacher for over 20 years. I had that support system in place at home, and it was one that was so well-rounded and so so powerful that, you know, I was able to brush off those comments. But when children are hearing these things over and over again, snide comments, remarks that are jokes, quote unquote, it can have a lasting effect. And so what I want to see a greater support services, like I mentioned before. But I think every grade, maybe every classroom, should have essentially an ombudsman where a student can go confidentially and complain about this type of behavior, because while the tone starts from the top, it manifests itself from the ground up. And the children who are experiencing this many times don't have an adult that they can trust and go to and share this information. If we're able to monitor school classrooms and witness this type of thing, that would be great, but that doesn't really happen. So I want to see a student advocate in every classroom or every kid to know that they have somebody looking out for them outside of the classroom.
Thank you. The final question is to Marion Cutler, but it was also supposed to be for Javier Farpan. So after everyone is done answering the question, or
After Mary
answers, then we'll have to say, okay.
Anne Marie is going to read Farfan's.
Okay, so after Marion answers the question, Anne Marie has a statement from Javier Farpan. So I'm going to read the question, and you have time to answer, and then we'll have the statement, and then everyone else can answer for a minute. The racial makeup of faculty over 22 years has never reflected the racial and cultural makeup of the student body. What would you do differently to recruit, hire, and retain a more diverse staff?
Really good question. Part of it comes down to, as simple as it sounds, to prioritize. If we want, and we're working so hard to change that our schools reflect our community, and we're going to put the community through that kind of change, we're going to ask the community to partner with us on that. And we're about to make sure that the classrooms, we talked about that, how do we make sure the classrooms are. It's about prioritizing that as teachers, you know, as tenured teachers start to leave, that we are looking to actively fill in ways that best represent our community. And our community from a race standpoint, from a religious standpoint, however we want to divide that, wherever those priorities are, that's what we need to do. So it really just starts first and foremost at the top in terms of how do we start to make sure that the teachers are reflective of the classrooms or the students that they're in charge of. In terms of how do we recruit, hire, and retain, it really starts with respect. If you talk to anybody, any of our teachers, or you talk to the union, there is a long-standing belief that our administration and our Board of Ed does not respect the teachers. And that is permeated by where they're currently operating yet again without a contract. So we are asking them to operate in good faith while we take our time negotiating a contract. And whatever the reasons are for the time it takes to negotiate the contract, it's not like we don't know the contract is coming up. It comes up in clockwork. So that's number one. We have got to start to actively show our teachers we respect them. We need to make sure that in terms of training them, we talked a lot about this climate and culture, this atmosphere of excellence, I think that Mike called it a declaration. Let's put a manifesto in place. This is who we are, this is who our teachers will be, this is how you will behave. And it becomes this narrative that carries out, that waves out into our community, and our community then can reflect it back. Why we have the best teachers, why we're the best district, why we are a destination district, not just for the families who buy here, but for the teachers who want to work here.
Anne Marie is now going to read the statement from Javier Farpan.
And it's 2 minutes,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, and I just want the audience to know that this was not in preparation to any questions. This is his opening statement.
And he's traveling for work, traveling to make it tonight.
Thank you, thank you. So I'm reading this on behalf of Javier. So my wife Natalie and I moved here a little less than 4 years ago from New York because we wanted to give our son the benefit of seeing the wider world and growing up in a diverse community. We quickly discovered the gap between the promise of diversity and the reality in our two towns. Nowhere is that gap larger than in our schools. We need to fix that. That's why I'm running. I know that it is possible for every child, no matter the color of their skin or their family's income level or their English language skills, to perform at the highest levels. Many other people say they believe this, but I'm not so sure they do. Why do I know that it's possible? Because I was one of those kids who started school not speaking English and being in random classes because they didn't know where else to put me. I was also one of those kids who wasn't an angel as a teenager. How did I manage to pull myself together and make it to SUNY Binghamton and then graduate degrees at Columbia and NYU that led to a great career as a senior marketing executive and consultant, and now as a Seton Hall adjunct professor? My mom and my extended family, yes, but also the school system and teachers that believed in me. And I know it's possible because I've done it twice. First with a mentoring program for inner city middle school students I started with Binghamton classmates, and then with an old friend in 2004, winning a mayor's grant and opening a public high school for disadvantaged young women in New York City. Both are still going strong. I know what kind of teachers we need and what's possible. If elected, I will settle for nothing less, starting by hiring a superintendent who settles for nothing less in our principals, and principals who settle for nothing less than their teachers, and teachers who in turn settle for nothing less than their students. This will transform our district, not just for struggling students, not just for students of color, but for young women in math and students with disabilities, and even our currently highly achieving students, and actually for all students. I ask for your vote on November 6th and vote for me so that we can put our district on a path to the future for all children. That was the statement. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to read the question again, and you will have 1 minute to answer. The racial makeup of faculty over 22 years has never reflected the racial and cultural makeup of the student body. What would you do differently to recruit, hire, and retain a more diverse staff?
Right, well, first of all, I'm going to say it again, it goes back to bringing back to creating a climate and culture in our district that is welcoming and affirming for all students and families. And also as a district, we must be able to create that mission, vision, and the values of our district, who we are, what we are as a district, what we're looking for, what we want for ourselves should be what we want for all of our children. And the staff that we're going to be able to recruit, we have to be actively engaged in seeking out high-quality educators, support staff, and leaders that are outside of our community, that believe in who we are as a community, our mission, our vision, our values, that they want the same things that we want for our students and families. That is the starting point for that conversation. The second part of that is making sure that the next superintendent who would be in charge of making sure that teachers are recruited, because that is not a position from the BOE directly to be in charge of hiring staff directly, but making sure that that superintendent understands what we're looking for as a school district with our mission, vision, and values, and that we are setting out the goals and tasks to be implemented by that superintendent to make sure that they are going out and seeking and recruiting high-quality educators that mirror the diverse population of our student body. It is a shame that in 2018 we do not have more teachers of color in our district. It is a shame that in 2018 we do not have diverse bodies representing the entire makeup of our wonderful, beautiful, diverse community. We have to make that a priority. We have to make that a priority now if we truly want to move our district forward.
So the only thing I would add to that is that when you look at the work of the Maplewood Middle School principal, she was intentional about the work. She went out and attracted teachers of color, and she showed that they would be supported, and she has increased the diversity of Maplewood Middle School. So it can be done, and I just echo what Shannon said about it needs to start from building that climate of who we want to be and making sure that the superintendent delivers on that in his hiring.
theme again, it's got to be the directive of the district that we are committed to doing this. We've talked and talked and talked, but we haven't done it. We've talked about attending job fairs. Not sure what we got from that. We've talked about increasing the teachers of color, but it hasn't changed. We have to be proactive. First off and foremost, the district has to have a clear vision of who we want to be, so people who look to come teach here are excited about it. We've had a rolling superintendent. We've had 3 superintendents in the last 10 years. If I was a teacher, I'd be concerned about that. We've got to fix that problem. We've got a community that's well engaged, and that's phenomenal sell to a teacher. We have teachers who live in the district who don't teach here. Why is that? We have teachers that work in close by districts that we don't recruit to come here. The new principal of Columbia High School, Dr. Morgan, is from Orange. I would be sitting down with her right now asking to go meet anyone who she thinks is valuable in this district. We can be very proactive. We can change things, but we have to do it. It's got to be a clear mission statement. And enough of this, we're going to do it, put numbers out there. I want to see how many candidates we interviewed for the last hire. I'm a professional recruiter. I do it for a living. It's not hard to do, but it's hard if you're not committed to it. We are a community that wants change. You should be screaming for it. Ask for the results. Ask for the change. Where is it? Hasn't been happening.
So it's not difficult. We teach our children that we need to work toward what we want to achieve. And yet this hasn't happened here, year after year. Why? I moved to the district with my family 3.5 years ago. My daughter, the oldest of 3, is now in 1st grade. And it's startling to me that the faculty doesn't resemble the student body. She goes to school here in Marshall, but I've seen the faculty at other schools, and it's surprising to me. So one of the things I think we need to do is look at programs, recruitment programs that work. I mentioned before NYC Men Teach. We don't have to copy that program, but we can look at it and see what works, what elements apply to the district here, and go out and do that. We need to do a better job of reaching into education programs, not just Bank Street College of Education, which is a wonderful, wonderful institution, but there are other schools that we should be going into, especially across the country. So I think if we decide we want to do this, we need to do it and get it done. I'm new here in the district, so I don't know why this hasn't been undertaken before, and I would like to see it changed.
So I have no professional recruitment experience. However, I would say what's important to me is we're a network here as a district. There are so many people here that have resources and connections. It was my responsibility alone as a Board of Ed member. I would be asking the questions, why can't we go and look at historically Black universities and partner with them? Can we partner with them? Because those schools are not all, they're not all Black students at the school, but you definitely got to reach a big population of teachers potentially of color. So is that something that we can look at? And that's probably what I would look at if it's something I can do. The other thing is when you do bring in teachers of color, it's important that they have support. And that support means each one of them support each other. You have things like, I spoke to a teacher before, and one of the things she said was, it would be nice if we had like a teachers meet and we could get together and talk about things that are important to us and feel supported by each other. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, how comes you guys don't do that? And she's like, we just don't do that. So you bring in your teachers of color here that you do have, but it's important that they have a connection to the other teachers of color as well as the teachers in the building, and that means they need to get together. However that happens, they need to get together.
I agree with what everybody had said previously, particularly the comments on climate with teachers and feeling valued. On one hand, this is more the super's job than the board's job, and I think it starts with the board. It starts with the board's most important hire, which is that of the super. I was at one of the meetings with the consultant. I didn't think he got it when he was asked about how he was going to consider a diverse population in the search. He kind of danced around it after being asked a few times. So I think that's something in the short term we need to look at. But the board can set the tone right there. And then at that point, we need to kind of step outside the box a little bit. We could look at partnerships with local universities. We could look at internships. We can look at, I don't know if this is even legal, but it's something I would look into, whether or not there's something that we can offer in terms of financial incentives. But at the end of the day, this starts at the super and works its way down, and this is something that I think we need to hold them accountable for. This is a pure accountability thing. So when it comes time for a comp review, and we're looking at the super, one of the things that should be under consideration is whether or not any significant improvements have been made on that front. And it's pretty simple, either they've done it or they haven't, and I think they need to be held accountable for ensuring that in fact year on year that there's progress made.
Okay, thank you. That completes the questions from the schools committee. We are now going to the questions from the audience. No question can be directed at one candidate. All questions are for all candidates. Anyone who's given more than one question, I ask that you please just ask one question. We're trying to get through all the questions tonight. There's a lot of them, or as many as we can. So please, if you've given more than one, pick one. I'm going to pick You have 1 minute to answer the question. David Harris, come up and ask your question.
Is everyone planning to answer, or what's the format for answering?
Yeah.
Good evening. Our problems with the persistent segregation are well known, and for at least 30 years, various leaders have said they were going to fix it. We are still talking. What do each of you see as the impediments? You can name one or two to progress, and what is your plan to overcome the impediments you have identified?
Okay, I will start with Marion.
Oh, sure. If I understand correctly, we're one or two impediments? Is that what the question was?
Yeah.
I'm going to say that I think the main impediment has been the fortitude of the superintendent and the board. We've talked about it simply too many years, and the only thing that's consistent is the fact that we're governed by our superintendent and the board. So they'll talk and they'll tell you that they're going to do something, and it's not happening. So if anything, the buck stops back in the horseshoe. So the biggest impediment is absolutely there. The second impediment, which I think gives cover to the first, is that it's going to be difficult. It's going to, as a community, for those who've been in town, as I said earlier, I've been in town 18 years, there was a point where we had to sort of redistrict a little bit of Clinton and Tuscan, if anybody remembers, and it caused this brouhaha in the community. So what we need to do, and that becomes this cover for the first impediment. So in terms of getting over that, I said earlier, we need to, as we go down this line of truly integrating our schools to smooth out the socioeconomic, we need to make sure we're partnering with groups like Black Parents Workshop, CCR. Everybody needs to help be an ambassador for us, because we need the entire 42,000 people who live here to really support this.
Okay, remember, you don't all have to answer, so I'm no longer going to call on it. You just go to your mic, but if you don't want to answer, you don't have to. So 1 minute for whoever wants to.
So you've heard a continual theme, but I'm going to repeat it. It has to be the directive and the mission of the district. We continue to talk about, we want to have change, but we're not willing to step up. We're not willing to make bold statements of change. It comes from the superintendent. That is absolutely. The board sets the directive with the superintendent. So if the current board wanted to have change, they would set it as a directive of the superintendent, and then they hold the superintendent accountable. The new superintendent that is hired, clear criteria needs to be evaluated. What have they done in their previous districts regarding the issues that are important to our district? It's simple. Look at the results. If they haven't been involved in integration, they might not be a good match for us. If they haven't been involved in improving the achievement gap, they're probably not a good match for us. If they haven't had a facilities plan, that might be something we can overlook, but let's see how they've handled their budget. So again, it starts at the top down. That's where it goes, and we can change things. You should be screaming for change by now.
So I actually have some hope for our community at this point. As I've sat in the horseshoe for 3 years, as I still have painful memories of discussions about de-leveling the middle school, moving those lines between Clinton and Tuscan, where you would have thought we were delegating children to the horrors of childhood. We have something that, sitting in that horseshoe, you are constrained by making sure that the 9 voices are speaking as one, or at least as consensus as possible. We haven't had that, and I think my newly engaged candidates are forgetting about the work that we did on the strategic plan, the brouhaha, as you described, Marion, over just talking about making it possible for children to pursue their passions. And you would have thought that we were going to ruin children's lives. So I am going to overspeak one more minute because this is real. This is people who have been committed to this work and who have stood up and taken the heat from their neighbors, who have friends who don't talk to them, who cross the street, who don't even question what the thoughts were. I think if we really have 8 other people who are willing to really address this stuff, then I welcome everyone to vote for who they think is best, because this work is hard and you need to be on the lookout for those kids and that curriculum and that acceptance of the achievement gap, because it's real in our community and you have to be willing to fight it.
So, I'm glad to hear all the passion on the panel here. But I can only talk from what I see as my experiences. And I think we just have to own the fact that we've made mistakes. And we're not perfect. And we understand it's a hard position that you're going to put yourselves in, being on the Board of Education. But you have to be able to listen to everything that people are saying, listen to the students. And the decisions we make have to be with the best interest of the students first. I understand that you need 9 people to agree, but sometimes you need independent voices and independent thoughts so that that decision that you make really is the best decision that you can make. And I won't say that what we've done so far, it's just not enough. It hasn't made enough impact. So that's why we're working on things like that's been around since 1990. It's decades of it. So I understand the passion of our community and all the hard work that we've done in our community, but I don't think all the things that people did in the community we've even listened to and implemented completely. So at the end of the day, we have to start to monitor that. And if you put something in place, where's the monitoring for that?
ones I won't go over. I'll be quick. We've suffered for years under paralysis by analysis. We have surveys and we have roundtables and we talk to a lot of people and we put a lot of things together and we try and build consensus. And at the end of the day, year after year, we sit in the same position that we've always been in. So at some point, we need to take a step back and we need to look at the way that we're doing things and maybe come to the realization that in fact we need to take another approach. At the end of the day, we've got a ton of data that we need to look at. We've got a ton of approaches that we can take at the elementary level towards ending segregation. And then there's other ways that we can look at it in terms of how we're going to structure stuff. It's not going to be easy, it's going to be painful, but it needs to be something that in fact sits. Not something that we look at 1 or 2 years down the road and tweak, and not something that we flip on its head in 10 years, but we have to spend the time now to do it, and do it right.
Just very briefly, having covered school boards across this country as a reporter for most of my 20-year career in journalism, I've seen the impediment to progress is always a lack of political will. I have only lived here 3.5 years, and that much is clear. In that regard, this district is no different than any others. And so what we need to do is we need to take care of the students that are in the district now and prepare for the students who are coming in, for the new families who are moving to Maplewood and South Orange from Brooklyn, because of the promise of diverse schools and quality education. And secondly, we need to recruit and retain students, teachers of color, so that our children are better represented. They see themselves in the teachers that are leading the classrooms. Thank you.
Jesse Epstein?
At this time.
I couldn't read your real name, sorry. Okay, and please try to answer the question.
So we've heard a lot today about low expectations. And low expectations often arise from implicit bias. What actions have you taken individually as prospective board members to identify, confront, and correct your own implicit biases?
Are you picking someone?
No?
Oh, I can't.
I don't have to go first if someone has.
I can go.
Okay, go ahead.
That's a really good question. And I've been thinking about the way I've come to look at various comings and goings in the district over the last couple of weeks in a very different light when you tend to get introspective and you really get into the weeds on things. And the lesson I think that I've learned, the one thing that I think I've done probably more than anything else is to listen. And it's one thing to listen to folks in the past, and it's one thing to argue and to debate and to flesh issues out and to discuss things. But I hope that I've done a much better job in the last couple of weeks listening to people's concerns, listening to where they're coming from. It hit home at a CPAC in an arena that I wasn't particularly familiar with at the very beginning until I started to immerse myself in it and heard the stories of a lot of the parents in there in terms of the trials and tribulations that they've undergone with the district. And that meant more to me than anything. So I think that alone has been the one thing that I think I've done to do that.
Can I jump in? While I have a high degree of self-awareness as an individual, and I work at it every day, I am one of those people who seeks out expert advice. I do communications for a living. I know how to build coalitions. I know how to find the experts to teach me what I do not know. I'm going to actually call out somebody who's in the audience. There's a survey that went out about race and injustice in our district. And when it went out, before it was graded, I knew that Kadisha, I'm calling out Kadisha on Facebook, when I sent it in, I'm calling you out so you can hold me honest. When I sent my survey in, I said, I would like to talk to you afterwards, because if there's something I'm missing about myself, I'd like to use this as an opportunity to learn from it. So that's what I do. I do it every single time I encounter an area that I know I don't know deeply and passionately enough. And I rely on experts to help make me smarter and help make me better. So in terms of implicit bias, I don't know all my blind spots. I want to be, that's human. What I do know is I have blind spots and take actionable steps every single time to shut down my blind spots.
So, as a preschool director, I have the good fortune of hearing lots of stories from our young children. And right after the Trump election, my students were really feeling it. And one student had a particularly difficult time making sense of what was happening, what they were experiencing. And one of my teachers, Ms. Galan, handled this with so much grace, so much poise, so much preparation. So she came to me to share the story, and I'm sitting there going, wow, okay, Emery, you have really opened up the conversation in your school, you've done some great PD, you've hired well, really, really good job. So I asked Ms. Galan, so our training is paying off, it's preparing us all for these conversations. And Ms. Galan just looked me in the eye with such clarity, and she said, Ms. Emery, I have to prepare for this conversation every day of my life. And that was such an emotional, eye-opening experience for me that I carry that every day.
Is it Jesse?
Yes.
You started off by saying low expectations, right? That's how it
So
started.
that we heard a lot in the beginning part of this debate about low expectations.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, I've lived in this town for, I think it's like 32 years. I went through the entire school district. I attended so many of the schools. And, you know, this is a very diverse community. And what is amazing is you have to experience it. And I think I've been fortunate enough to experience it. And I put myself out there. I try to learn. I try to experience things differently. I've had an opportunity because I've been involved with my children in terms of coaching. And I think some people took a shot at me saying that coaching really wasn't volunteering for the youth of the community. Well, let me explain something to you. I coach children, boys and girls of diverse backgrounds. And I will tell you, I treat them with the utmost respect and the same level of courtesy that we should be treating everyone in this district. I love the fact that I get an opportunity to do that. And I think what we need to do as a community is just that. Experience it. Expose ourselves to it. Marion mentioned it. Learn your blind spots and challenge it. I challenge my kids every day if I hear a comment that I don't like, that I don't think is correct, by educating them. But it's all about what we stand for and what we believe in. And I love this community, and I love what we can do and where we can go. That's why I live here. That's why my wife and I have been here since 2003.
Sorry, I'd like to answer just briefly. I don't have all the answers. As a reporter, having been a reporter for so many years, I was never expected to have the answer. That was always my job, was to find someone who knew better than I did. Somebody who had an opposing viewpoint from the person I just spoke to. Not that opposing viewpoints are always equally valid, but you know, my job was always to filter the signal from the noise, and my currency was information. Finding it, understanding it and explaining it. And I think that, that in itself leads to challenging my own assumptions on a daily basis. And so that's, I hope that answers your question.
So I think the first action that I know that I take, and I think that to acknowledge for all of us in this room, is that we all have inherent bias based from how we grew up, where we grew up, our background, our ethnicity, our race, our religion, who we are as individuals and persons. And we have to be able to break down those barriers of understanding and acknowledge those biases first and foremost, to be able to create empathy, respect, and understanding between each other, and create that groundwork to create a climate and culture that's going to bridge across that and truly create welcoming and affirming schools for all students and families. And as an educator for over 22 years at working in the Safer Schools movement, I have done that working with students and school districts across this country and creating empathy, respect, and understanding with anti-bias curricula and anti-bias training, and how important that is to leadership and also creating, again, that climate and culture of the school district as a whole that will move school districts forward. It is vitally important that we examine and we acknowledge our own biases on a daily basis. Myself included, as an LGBT individual, I have biases. We all have biases, but we have to be able to examine them, look at them, acknowledge them, and be able to have really honest discussions to move forward.
So I think this is a really tough question, but I think what's important and is accurate is that we do have biases and we have to acknowledge it. And I think what I try to do every day is to keep my guard lowered. I come from a place where we're saying we're out of many one people, but in that same place we do a lot of things that aren't right. And I can speak for that for sure. But what I can tell you is that I every day think about the preconceived notions I may build up around for people that I meet, so I keep my guard down. I have children, so I don't want them to do things that I don't think are right. And I think in order to do that, I have to lead by example. So I'm careful about what I say, because I don't want to change their perceptions about what is out there and who's out there and what they're supposed to. I want them to create their own biases that are healthy, make their own decisions based on the fact that I didn't implement anything that would have, changed their mind of what is the right thing or what isn't the right thing. But again, the biggest thing is acknowledging the fact that you are biased. We all have biases, and it's important to address them internally.
Linda Gottlieb.
With a focus on equity and inclusion, could each candidate share an experience where they've been disadvantaged and how that experience would form their approach to helping historically disadvantaged students as a Board of Ed?
Time's a wasting, guys.
Sorry. So, I am first generation American, first person in my family to go to college. And then I married, another immigrant and have children who are first generation. But the disadvantage of being different and being poor, not fitting in a wealthy suburban area, which my house was actually bused into Hyde Park from the city of Poughkeepsie. We were those kids on that bus. We were those other kids. We didn't go to the country club. We had pretty low expectations leveled at us. But, all right, I can't get the story out, sorry.
tough to get.
Who's next?
Yeah, yeah.
I really think we need to repeat the question just one more time, sorry.
With focus on equity and inclusion, I would like each of you, if you could, share an experience where you've been disadvantaged and how that experience will form your approach to helping those who have been historically disadvantaged as a member of the board.
So I grew up here, like I said, I came here when I was 8 years old. And coming from another country, you don't know that the school system is any different. So I don't think my parents knew that in our schools that we had levels, for example. And I can remember being in my classes, and they were mostly black classes for a long time. I didn't realize there was something different about that for a long time. It's because of sports, actually, I started to kind of mingle with other kids and realize that, wait, they're not in my class. Why aren't they in my class? It didn't dawn on us, it didn't occur to us. I did well enough. I wasn't the best student in the world, but I did well enough. And I thought, there's got to be something why this is happening. And again, like I said in my earlier statement, I had one teacher who said to me, why are you in this class? Why are you here? You need to be in a higher level class. And that's the only teacher I can think of that ever took a chance on me. And that was based on, the superior fact that I was not in the right level. I should have been in another level.
So I shared an anecdote earlier. When I was in elementary school and when I was in high school, I've had teachers actually say to me, why are you bothering applying to colleges? Even if you get in, you'll probably fail out and you'll just be wasting your parents' money. As a kid, that's something brutal to say. That's something harsh to say. Like I said earlier, I was lucky in that I had a support system at home. My family gave me so much support, unconditional support, that I was able to withstand that. Did it affect me? Probably in ways I didn't understand at the time. But that has taught me to value diversity and to value each individual and to recognize every individual's dignity. And to understand that everybody's potential is not the same. Everybody is not going to be a rocket scientist or a doctor, and that's okay. Maybe they're going to be an automotive technician or an architect, and that's okay. Thank you.
So, really intriguing question, because it kind of makes you look at your life and try and pick something out. So, being just a little bit different, I really want to try and answer this. So, a year ago, November 10th, I was laid off of my job. Unexpected, worst news ever, blah, blah, blah. Since then, I have been in a varying stage of complete underemployment. And I have encountered, without getting into numbers, a robust amount of ageism. It is amazing. So much so that I've had to recreate my resume. I've had to recreate the way I present my work experience, because I can't be too experienced. So I've had to really humble myself in this process. And while it's a poor example for inclusion, I do understand, I want to get to the point, the lesson of it. I understand what it means to have to recreate yourself. I understand the work it could take to have to be seen differently. And I hope that sort of humility is something I bring to the Board of Ed as we keep moving forward, as we're about to change our community.
That's a really, really good question. And in looking back on it, I think it's hard to pull out an event that I think is going to be so formative that's going to influence something that significant, affecting so many kids, other than looking at my upbringing. My upbringing wasn't anything remarkable one way or the other. My mom was a teacher. My dad was a police officer in New York, both in New York. And both of whom were the first in their families, their respective families, to go to college. Both of whom, at an early age, it's when you're little and what do you want to be when you grow up? And I would say, my sister would say a teacher, and my mom would say, oh, you don't want to do that. And I would say I wanted to be a cop. My dad would say, oh, you don't want to do that. But it was one of these things where we grew up in an environment where my parents and my extended family, and it was a very tight, extended, large Italian family, instilled in us, my sister and I, at a very early age, that what they didn't have and what they had to work for, into us in terms of making us value how hard it was and how for them, so that we had opportunities, and that's not left me. And I think those opportunities are what everyone deserves. And that's something that I think you can bring forward. It's very easy for me to bring that forward into anything that I do.
I hope I'm answering the question, but I'm just going to share an experience. I met a gentleman at Stop and Shop where I was campaigning the day, and he explained to me some instances with his children, positive or negative, in the district. One of the things he mentioned to me was his daughter didn't get invited to a lot of bar mitzvahs, and I was kind of taken back by it. Growing up here, I went to a number of bar mitzvahs, and pretty excited about them, and my children are experiencing that right now. But what he said to me was what his daughter felt like when she came to school on Monday, and she didn't have a shirt, and the other children did. And I'm not sure why I'm crying. I really don't. I mean, there's no reason to cry. But how I felt. And I went home that night and I talked to my kids. And I said, do you know what it's like? What they feel like when they're not included? And I didn't experience that. I had a great childhood here. It wasn't something I went through. But to hear that the other day, that's something that I just said, it can't be like that. And I'm not faulting any of the parents who are doing that for the children, but just think about it, that they're coming to schools wearing those shirts and a lot of kids didn't get invited, and they feel left out. And that makes me feel really bad. I'm sorry.
My life's goal, my life's passion, my life's work has been working with students that are marginalized, underserved, and students, amplifying student voices, empowering students and families. And for me, that has been prime and central and guided all of the work that I do. For me, students, marginalized students, students that are underserved, students that are Black and brown students, undocumented students, students of color, students with disabilities, marginalized students in so many forms, live and breathe in our community every single day. And I have made it my life's passion work to empower those students, to give them the support systems that they need to excel inside and outside of the classroom. So many students in our community are invisible to our greater community that are suffering from food insecurity, their housing insecurity, that are suffering because they don't get the support systems in place. And I have worked in this community to be able to amplify those voices because those marginalized students, those students that are invisible, students that are disadvantaged need our support and guidance, and they do not need to be invisible anymore. And so I would implore all of us, not just as candidates here, but all of us in the community to actively work in our community to amplify and lift up and empower student voices, especially ones that are marginalized and underserved in our community each and every day, inside and outside of our classroom, because they need us.
Larry Picture Carroll.
Considering all the issues you will face and the emergent problems people will bring to you, what are the priorities that will inform your decisions, and how will you avoid responding to the loudest noise?
can answer that pretty easily for you. Whoever yells the loudest isn't always the most correct. And screaming something from the rooftops doesn't necessarily make get your point heard by more people, but it doesn't make it any more valid. As such, I think you need a consistent approach as a board member looking at whatever issue you're tackling. So if you're dealing with policy, you're dealing with a particular budgetary matter, these things are all interconnected and on a different level that we could look at them in a vacuum, but it's all part of a decision-making process and a mindset that I think one needs to be able to separate some of that noise and to be able to look at things objectively. So on one hand, you kind of take in all of the opinions that you're getting, both from the very quiet sectors of society and the very loud ones. Treat them all equally, look at everything on their individual merits, and then you make decisions based upon that. But if somebody's just screaming loudly expecting to be heard, it's not going to get them anymore, in my book.
In terms of priorities, I think your question was priorities that would form the decisions and how to make sure we're not responding to the loudest voices, yes?
Yeah, pretty much it.
So the priority has got to be, every decision has to be made through this filter, a legitimate filter, an accountable filter that is, are the children, are the students being put first? There are simply too many decisions that year over year are not about the children. They're just not. And that has to stop. So in terms of priority, if you can pass this straight face test, that is this about putting all children first, not 80% of them, not this single group over here, all. That has to be the straight filter. The interesting word about use the word loudest. I want to put together opportunities where we are actively seeking out some of the softest voices too. While loud voices, particularly people who are coming in front of the horseshoe, they're pretty loud voices. And they are met routinely with disrespect bordering on disdain. So that has to stop. But I want to also then make sure we have some opportunities for either focus groups or opportunities to actually go and seek out some of the quieter voices who have interesting pockets of information that need to be wrapped into what we're looking to do as we're changing the course of the direction of this district.
I think it comes back to what is our initiatives of the district. We have to have a long-term goal, maybe a 10-year goal, a 5-year goal, a 3-year goal, and what has to be done imminently. I welcome the opportunity to be sitting in a room, to be educated, to understand different perspectives of a view. I want to come into a room not having a decision made. I want to be challenged, though, on what I know at this point. I think it's important for board members to keep focused on the job at hand. It's all about the children. If the decision is going to impact the children, we have to look at it. How is it going to positively impact it or negatively impact it? Once we get past that, we can get the job at hand. We of this district have to make decisions that are visionary, they're innovative, and they're long-standing. So one thing we have to do is make sure we're respectively looking at all those options and keeping focused on the job at hand.
And the biggest job at hand is hiring a superintendent who is experienced, who has the knowledge to really lead our district. Having served on a board wherein a superintendent's skills didn't match what our community needed, was really hard to get anything done. It was very hard to rally your fellow board members to have clear goals, because most of our energy was around how do we prepare for the next superintendent, how do we set the goals, how do we position our community to attract a viable interim, and then prep and get ready for this new superintendent that we will be hiring.
Okay, we have about 15 questions, but obviously we're not going to get to all of them. I'm going to try to get these two. Kim Charles.
placing armed guards or police in our schools, and particularly the use of the ALICE program in conjunction with that? And have you considered the potential impact of the potential impact on children of color in our community if these programs were to be put in place? Okay. Can you comment on the idea of placing armed guards or police in our school district, in our schools, and also the use of the ALICE program? And have you considered the potential impact of this on children of color?
So I'll answer that since I'm on the record for speaking out against having an armed guard in our schools, speaking out against an SRO. In the spring of 2016, we had received we've received significant feedback from our students of color who came to the board, came to a forum and spoke about the impact of their own interactions in Maplewood and South Orange, and that testimony clearly shaped my thinking on that. So that's all I'll say on that.
Absolutely 100% against any type of armed guard in our district. I listened to a podcast recently, I apologize, I wanted to pull the name up, but I don't want to be too rude here. And it was explaining the impact of a lot of the school shootings, and it was interviewing the people who had lived through the school shootings. And these schools had prepared for these school shootings, and they had gone through tests and drills. And the one thing that stuck in my mind was, I'm getting emotional again, I gotta stop. I don't know what's going on here. But to have a drill where you have gunshots, blanks in the building is a lasting memory. And that's not something that I want my 4 kids to experience or anyone else in this district. We can do a lot of things to secure our building. We can do a lot of things to make it safe and welcoming. But armed guards and excessive drills are unacceptable in any of our schools.
I go real quick. I think it was This American Life.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, time.
Yeah, that was good. That was horrifying and sad at the same time. Would I support them? No. Except under one condition, which is if the community, for whatever reason, wanted it, and I don't see that happening. I'm not dead set against it, but it is not something I would advocate for. It's not something I think is needed or warranted within any of the schools in the district. And it's not something I would ever push for. As far as Alice goes, I'm not a fan at all. I had said in the past that maybe if the C was dropped, it's something that could be considered, but it seems like Dr. Shaw has pulled that from the table, and I think that's a good thing. So wouldn't have to worry about that. But in terms of excessive drilling, I think the students' mindsets, I think the emotional impact on students has to be considered when we're looking at this, particularly as you weigh it against the likelihood of an occurrence happening. I think the odds that I had read were about 1 in 615 million. And I think when you look at that number compared to the long-standing damage that you could do to students, it's just not something that we should be looking at the way we're currently looking at.
So I'm a National Safe Schools expert, and under what safe schools means, it also means physical safety. And in that, I am very strongly against any armed SRO officers, SROs, school resource officers in our schools. Evidence-based research has shown that armed SRO officers do not decrease incidents of violence within a school, but actually can exacerbate tensions within a school system. Armed SRO officers research has also proven that it disproportionately impacts students of color, disabled students, LGBT students, and other students that are marginalized in their community, and contributes to the school-to-prison pipeline. It is, our community was against Alice. It raised awareness to the school board, and I was part of that did approach this past spring, raising the awareness of Alice and the concerns around that to the school board directly, and at public speaks during the school meeting, because Alice does not match the values of our district. It is not an evidence-based, research-proven program, and its impacts could be traumatic for our students and families. We have to look at school security and school safety in ways that are going to be able to not harden our schools like castles, but be able to create welcoming, affirming, safe spaces for learning that make students feel safe and affirmed.
One of the things that got me interested in running for the school board was the use of code red lockdown drills. My daughter, as a kindergarten, came home one night and told us about, when we were asking her how her day went, she told us about an animal being loose in the school, and naturally this led to about a dozen other questions. And it sounded like a lockdown drill. We received no information about this. You know, we're parents of a kindergarten student. This is our first experience in the district, and we had no information about what was going on, who was leading it, or what kind of support services our kids were having. You know, I've heard instances of kids being traumatized, kids being caught in the bathroom when the lockdown drill happens, and just sheer terror being inflicted upon these tiny children. I was spoiled by our preschool experience at Prospect, where children are valued and listened to and considered whole people, and this is something that wasn't happening in the schools, and the dignity of our students is not being respected. So not only am I opposed to armed guards in our schools and Alice training, which has no proven effectiveness, but we also need to be considering how we're dealing with our little ones.
And sort of closing it out, I do not support armed guards, officers, SROs in our district at all. There's just no place for them. The negative opportunities or the negative feelings it generates are too many. In addition, in terms of Alice, you've heard it before, we can just do better. It has no scientific evidence. I'm a data person. There's no evidence that says it would actually do what they say it's going to do. So it's a bag of goods. It's smoke and mirrors solely. What I would like to see, building off of what Bruno was saying, I would like to see our district do a whole lot more teaching us what's going on. If you guys are like me, I mean, I remember doing fire drills. I can tell you what the fire drill is. I can tell you what exactly happens in the district. I'll tell you, I have a 20-year-old who went through this district and lockdown drills. I have a 19 and a 10 and a 12-year-old. I do not know, except from third-hand experience, what it is to be in a lockdown drill. I don't know if you guys have ever been in one. I would like to see our district actually pull parents in, so therefore we can actually mitigate what's happening. We can let our children know what to expect on a lockdown drill. So when Bruno's child comes home and says, "Daddy, this is what happened," Bruno has all the messaging to say, "Let me explain why." Because right now, the district is making it so Bruno as a parent can't be a parent.
So, I am definitely not a proponent of armed guards in our school. I think about how, my time here, I think about my experience at Psalms, and I remember thinking about, as a parent now, going to Psalms, there was a security guard at the desk, something I wasn't used to, and I know based on what we're experiencing in our country right now and keeping our children safe, it's critical. But I also think about the lockdown drills and the phone call I got from my son in the classroom and the fear and panic in his voice, simply because, in that drill, and it wasn't a drill, in that scenario, the police came in armed, and he couldn't believe it. He was shocked. So I can't imagine you putting in a school with people that have weapons. You're just going to instill fear in our children. One of the things I do like, and I'd like to see, is the guards that would work for our district be a part of our district, not outsourced, because I think that's important. I noticed the kids have a good relationship with some of the security guards, And those are the people that we need to keep and have in our district to build that continued relationship. They have an ability to guide those kids. They help them, they open the door in the mornings, they smile, and they push them along and say, hey, what are you doing today? What are you doing in the hallway? And they have really good relationships. So I think we need to ensure that the guards that we do have in our district work for our district and have a more vested interest in our kids.
Thank you, everyone. And that concludes the questions from the audience. There are lots of questions left. And I apologize to all of you who wrote questions and your questions didn't get asked. And I apologize to you for only having a minute. We tried to be inclusive of the audience. So we did what we could with all of you. And we appreciate everything you've done here tonight. Now, we'd like to go to the closing statements, 1 minute each. And I'm going to start with Bruno, go that way, and then we'll start with Michael and this way, okay? So go right ahead now.
Thank you. As I said before, I don't have all the answers. My professional career has been spent finding the answers, and finding the experts who know better, digging for research, and whether this has to do with curriculum or student safety, early intervention, or integration. I'm looking for the best information, as are you, and I think valuing that and having a critical eye, knowing what questions to ask, is going to be an important part of the superintendent process of the redistricting or redrawing of lines and tackling, the hiring and retention of minority teachers and a whole host of issues that the school district is facing. And I also think that as a professional communicator, obviously I was not an on-camera talent, I was a print journalist. I recognize the value in celebrating what we're doing right. We want to hear the successes too, as well as honestly addressing the issues that we face. Thank you.
So again, thank you all for coming out. This has been the largest crowd. Being in the public eye is not my forte, obviously, either, but it's been a really impressive experience to meet all these people and have these great conversations and to learn more about what our parents and our kids are experiencing in our district. But what I want to leave you with is that I've experienced a lot of the things that some of our kids have experienced in this district. I make decisions based on, yes, facts and evidence, but I also, I make a decision not because someone else says it's an important decision to make. I use my own mind and I think about how this would impact me and my students and the children around us. And so I want you to understand that if I'm on the board, I'm just going to make a clear, direct decision. I don't have extra fluff. I don't have extra, things to sell you on. I'm just here to make a concrete and fair and just decision based on what's important for our children.
Thanks to everybody for coming, very much, and for listening. Thanks to the CCR for hosting. Thanks to my fellow candidates for a lovely 2 hours, it seems. These are hard. Of course, you come up with a million things that you realize you wanted to say after you can no longer say anything. But suffice it to say, this district is to some extent like Sisyphus pushing a boulder uphill. We've got a mountain, but that mountain, I think that where the story changes is that this is something that we can finally get over the top. None of the things that we all face are insurmountable. None of these challenges are without their solutions. I think with a group of independent thinkers shedding a new light on some approaches to long-standing problems, we could all get there. I'd like to be part of that. I'd appreciate the consideration, or at minimum, at least the conversation with everybody in the coming weeks. Thanks very much.
ditto on the thanks. I do want to put out one plug. They said that there were a lot of questions. I dare say everyone up here on the board, or sitting up here rather, is on Facebook. If you have a question that didn't get asked, I really encourage you to post it on Facebook. Put it in Soma Lounge, put it in any of them. We're all sharing the same sort of like lists. You'll get your answer. So I really want to encourage that. Don't let the conversation stop when you walk out the door. As far as me, I really want to be on the board of that. I want to be on the board of that because I don't exist in nuance. I'm a very direct person. I will give you a straight answer. I will do what I said I was going to do. I will tell you why I did it. I will tell you why I deviated. I'm very specific. In addition, I'm a research person. I was almost, if not the very first voice in our district who raised the alarm on the IB when we were going to bring IB into our district. I didn't know IB. I'd never been exposed to it. On my own dime, my own time, I went and physically toured 8 different schools from Connecticut to Virginia who had IB. I wrote up an entire op-ed. I presented in front of the board. That's the type of work you'll get from me. You'll get a lot of footwork. I'm going to come to you and say, this is best practice. I will come to you and say, like Alice, that is not best practice, and I can tell you why. You're going to have decisions that make sense. I'm telling you, every single decision I will make for this town will be about the children first, all children. We're making too many decisions right now that are about most children. We need to make sure they're about all. Please vote.
Thank you everyone for coming again. It's the best turnout we've had, and actually great questions, not some we've had in previous debates. I'm very passionate about this district, about this town, about the students, and I want us to be winners. And I mean that. I'm a very competitive individual. I look at things from how you improve and how you get better at things to be the best you can be. And I believe we have winners in the children of this district. But we have to set the standard. And if you vote for me, I promise you, I will work tirelessly. I will work in conjunction with the board members. I will do everything I can to educate myself, to understand the options out there. I do not look at things from a red or blue standpoint. I look at things, are they right for children? But I am telling you, I want to be number one. I want to be a top district, a premier district in New Jersey. I am tired of looking at other schools around us that have the same resources and are outperforming the product that we give. And we deserve better. Our children deserve better. Let's give it to them. So please, if you vote for me, that's what you're going to get every single day.
So our district is finally poised to ensure that all of our classrooms reflect our larger community. Our schools, where our children spend a third of their waking day, are segregated, and we must, as we've all said, with the facilities plan to upgrade our aging buildings, the elementary school reconfiguration, and the curriculum realignment, create school communities that reflect our neighborhood communities. This work will move us from liking to see diversity to leveraging diverse experiences in the classroom. This work includes supporting adults to be responsible for creating positive relationships with children, families, and with each other, so that children and families feel valued and welcomed. We need to ensure that the district's work to make our curriculum and classroom experience culturally reflective and responsive to our students is real and measured. We need board members who believe that all children can learn, who can stay focused on the priorities, and manage the superintendent to deliver effectively on these goals. Javier and I believe perseverance, the willingness to tackle the tough questions, and the ability to collaborate with fellow board members is the model to move our district forward in achieving these goals.
Thank you to CCR and all of you here tonight, and if, I don't know if anybody's watching from home, but thank you for turning into the debate. So the 3 mission goals of the BOE, one being that we set the policy and tone of the district. And that is going to be vital and critical, not just us also finding the next leader and the next superintendent, but setting the goals and the foundation, the mission, the vision, and our values as a district, as a community, to help move our district forward. And that is going to be forward with a full integration plan and combating the inequities within our district that students of color, marginalized students have been facing for years. We must address them head on, we must acknowledge them. And one of the prime directives of the work that I do is to make sure that students and communities are not just achieving equality, but true equity in all of its forms. And so as we look ahead into the future, trying to strive towards 21st century learning, we have to be mindful and thoughtful of the impact of our students and making sure that, again, we're creating a climate and culture across our school system that mirrors our diverse student population, that exudes the mission and values of our district, our community, and moves us forward.
Thank you. I'd like you all to please stay a few more minutes. I'm going to call Nancy Gagne, the Director of the Coalition. And please fill out your sheets that are on the tables. We need your names and whatever information you ask.
All right, first of all, thank you, everyone. And when you get complaints about bad live streaming video, that was me. It was unplanned, but we did have another 28 people watching tonight, so more community. We are going to have a good quality video that our program director, Aguirre, is taking out. We'll try and get that up in another format, probably on our YouTube channel, so people can see everything that happened tonight. So quickly, I want to say thank you so much to all of you. I know I was there, like Abby was, and Larry, and there are probably other people in the room who are doing it now that I can't see. It's a hard job and it requires a lot of time and effort. I want to thank the schools committee for all the work that they've done over 20 years, advocating for equity and integration in classrooms and schools. I want to thank the trustees. So schools committee members, if you can just raise your hands. And who are still here, great, thank you. All of you who came out, this has really been an amazing crowd. We always get a pretty big crowd, but this has been extra big, and with the live streaming even bigger. Thank you for coming out to hear about the candidates' views on our particular concerns. We know that they have to talk about a lot of things, but we're always talking about racial equity, integration, and the diversity of the staff in the schools. It's important to us, it's important to the community, and we're glad to have this opportunity to hear from the candidates. We do have an opportunity to be a model for other districts, but it will take a willingness to change some of our current practices and policies, and I hope that you heard some of that tonight. So once again, I thank you candidates for your willingness to share your ideas about how we get there. Please, do we have forms that they were going to fill out, evaluations?
Not evaluations, just the attendance.
Oh, yeah, so if you could fill out, we would love to include you in on our email blast list. Most important tonight, at the very end, share the information that you've gotten with neighbors and encourage them to vote, and please vote. And thank you again for being here.